Nye McGee here with EURweb.com. Thank you for giving me your time today to speak about him.
Of
And so
course,
I had an opportunity to watch it last night. And it's definitely one of those films where the first time around, okay, I'm going to give you my honest reaction first.
please.
My first time around, I was like, there's some weird shit going on in this movie. It's it is it's so freaky. When you first read the script for him, right? What excited you most about the story and its potential from an editor's perspective?
I mean, just the subject of sports and horror to me, I was like, sign me up, put me in, coach. Like I grew up playing every sport in the book, and my dad being like a former NFL player, like I saw the kind of horrific aspects of it and was like, oh, this is perfect. I can speak to this pretty well in the edit. And yes, wild is the perfect reaction. I mean, I think that's you're spot on. There are layers and layers of kind of ideas that we explored that are not, presented on its face. So I was excited about two subjects that I knew very well.
This film is directed by Justin Tipping. He has a very distinct visual and narrative style for this
Yes.
project. So what was your collaboration process with him like? How did the two of you kind of shape the film's tone and pacing together?
Well, we were actually colleagues at AFI about over 13 years ago. So I've had, time to understand his style. I knew getting into this that he was going to be a super hyper stylistic director and kind of try everything under the sun with devices and motifs and different cutting patterns and things like that. So I kind of knew what it was going to look like tonally ahead of time. But I think once I understood why is the when I was like on board, I think he wasn't limited by the genre or the form. He really wanted to explore how all-encompassing the sport itself is and just professional sports across the board and and how kind of contradictory it is. And I think the tonal shifts that we created were they were sharp shifts and they were done so in an effort to kind of expose the contradiction. It was kind of it's kind of poetic in that it's an editorial execution way to reflect the themes. And so you either pick up on it or hopefully you pick up on it a second time. But yeah, there's a lot of kind of whiplash for those reasons. And yeah, it was based in narrative and commentary, really.
What I really enjoyed about this was watching Marlon Wayans because he is so flawless going from comedy, the comedy work we've seen in the past, and then just this dramatic performance, which pulls you right in. He delivers such a transformative, deeply unsettling performance. And Tariq brings a lot of vulnerability to his role, right? So, how did you approach editing their scenes to kind of balance that tension between charisma and menace?
Well, we really had to play Marlon down because he's so good. Like he's so emphatic and evocative. And you really want like those performances on screen the whole time because it's just so fun to watch. But in order to build a kind of really realistic character arc for his character Isaiah White, I really had to kind of use takes that were a little bit more subdued and a little less like, we didn't want to tip our hats, basically, or tip our hand. I think that's the say at the beginning. So I had to kind of choose performances where he just seems approachable and normal, and you're not really, thinking twice about who this character is, and then eventually kind of open, the sinister aspects of his character up as Tyreek is going through his journey in the compound. And I mean, Marlon has such amazing range, which I think most comedians do, just because a lot of their comedy stems from trauma. Not saying his specifically, but in general, I think they have a lot of range in that sense. And he was able to access it the entire time. And I had the benefit of picking and choosing. Well, me and Justin, the director, had the benefit of picking and choosing when to really expose those moments the most. And Tyreek, same with him. I mean, like conversely had an arc where he starts off very innocent and curious, and then kind of devolves into kind of Marlon's character. They kind of almost become the same. And the commentary there is that they, one's the bad guy, one's the good guy, but they're actually both victims in the circumstance. And so trying to just measure when to release the bad in these characters was probably the most, I don't know, the heaviest hand we had in editorial. But yeah, I mean, they were both so good, and there were so many things we wanted to include but couldn't because the movie, it has to end at some point. But yeah, if I could cut them for every film, I would.
Now, speaking of your work, I mean, him explores, as we've kind of just discussed here, these layered themes. So we have sacrifice, we have control, identity, ambition. How did those themes kind of influence the way you approached shaping the story?
The themes on its face, I think, sacrifice is probably the biggest theme. Like how much or what would you sacrifice to be the greatest of all time, and is it worth it? But we did add layers of texture that, yeah, they kind of touch on identity and blind allegiance and autonomy and all of these things. And they all kind of take place in different scenes. Like there's these ideas peppered in throughout that are more Easter eggs meant for a second watch. We want to just to present this to an audience so it's palatable and ingestible. It's like sacrifice, it's something we all understand and can get on board with. But, kind of shifting tonally throughout, you understand that, oh man, both these players, their body is not theirs. Like they're fighting for control over their bodies, and neither of them have it, even though one looks like he's in control and one doesn't. And so we're trying to sprinkle that in without hitting the audience over the head with this. We don't want it to feel like a back to school story. And based on your reaction, I don't think it is that. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers, and to find the right balance so that people understand that there is more to look into after the movie's done is what we were trying to strike. Like that's the balance we were trying to strike. So I hope people start questioning some of the things that they're saying. If it is weird or confusing, whatever, I hope they kind of look back and ask themselves twice what we might be trying to communicate there. And a lot of it are, yeah, just very important themes that I see in the sport, or we see in the sport every day.
In terms of, crafting the suspense throughout the editing, throughout the film, right, in your work, because I definitely was on the edge of my seat. I hated to put it on pause to even walk away because it's a screener, and if you pause a screener, you risk it glitching
Yep.
out.
Yep.
Right? So this film has been described as more than a thriller with like this kind of haunting soundscape. It's almost, this immersive psychological tension that you take viewers on. So for my final question, can you talk a little bit about how you use pacing, rhythm, and sound to keep the audiences on the edge of their seats?
I mean, it's really about leaning in and pulling back and leaning in and pulling back, and that kind of hot and cold that establishes the tension. I mean, there's a lot of tension with like paradoxical, themes and images just naturally. And so editorially, it was just about how long we were going to let those linger on screen. And whether or not we need to let the audience sit in discomfort or, quick cut to something else so they can decompress and have a reprieve. So it's just striking that balance that I think, hopefully, as you say, gave us some tension that you needed to pull, needed to pause the screen.
Right? Right. And I swear this is it really quick. What are you most excited about viewers to experience when they watch him when it opens in theaters?
Oh God, probably the end. The ending might be my favorite.
Yeah, it's a wild ending, that's for sure. No spoilers, viewers, but
Right.
you don't see it coming. That's all I'll
Yeah.
say. Okay.